Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Imagine if you had 1 million XRP. In particular, imagine you had 1 million XRP over roughly the last several months. Because before the election in November, XRP was worth close to 50 cents. It then ran to $3.40, a new all-time high, in January. Pretty big move. Pretty big. So if you had 1 million XRP through that, that means that your XRP went from being worth $500,000 to being worth $3.4 million, and now back down to a little over $2 million with it. I mean, it got as low as about $1.60. So back to, imagine that. Imagine your XRP peaked at $3.40. You're holding strong, and then it drops all the way down to, so $1.60. So about $1.6 million. That is some extreme freaking volatility. You need to have like a spine of steel to be able to manage this. And I will tell you, and I put in what to me subjectively was a metric F ton of money into XRP. So I dollar cost averaged in for a number of years from 2017 into 2020. And then at the end of my accumulation, I made a few larger purchases. And I've talked about that a number of times on the channel. And it's still by a lot my largest individual crypto holding, even though I haven't bought XRP since the later part of 2020. That's because I went that crazy with my purchasing, and I have no regrets with that whatsoever. But I will just tell you this, like my net worth, my God, it's never been so freaking volatile. And XRP is a substantial reason why. But it's just fun seeing this play out because I understood that in 2017, I thought through this and I thought about it a lot in 2018. I was like, if I'm right about XRP and it really is going to be worth way more in the future, I understood that that meant that my net worth was going to be all over the place before I finally got to a point where I'd be enticed to sell. And so emotionally, actually, it's not bothering me at all. But it is wild still, just to see like the ridiculous fluctuations here. But look, the reason I want to highlight this, so there's a headline on your screen here. Here are fearless XRP holders holding 1 million or more XRP. And so if you look at various buckets of XRP holders in terms of quantity held, it's amazing. Like there's one that's down a little bit. I'll get to it a little bit later in the video. But it's just impressive that so many XRP holders are actually holding through this with massive quantities of XRP. Talk about a vote of confidence. It's just wild stuff. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. Now, before diving into that, I wanted to briefly touch on this because I am not afraid at all to share opinions on this channel from chart analysts who think that XRP ain't gonna be doing so well. It's very risky to hold such a position because, you know, you let enough time pass, no analyst has ever been on the right side of that bet. Because XRP just keeps getting adopted. I mean, it's easy to understand why you don't need to be a chart guy. Just look at the freaking utility increasing. Look at the entire XRP ecosystem. Pick a metric, son. More and more people getting onboarded, more developers building, all sorts of stuff. But still, for those that think, for whether it's short, medium, or long term, think that XRP ain't going to do so hot, I'm happy to highlight that because, frankly, it's increasingly difficult to come across these people. It really is. But take a look at this headline from the Crypto Basic. Top analyst says it's best time to short XRP, urges investors to reconsider buying. And they're sharing this post from an analyst named Karush AK. I'm not familiar with him, or at least I don't recall having seen him before. But he seems to be very popular, 374,900 followers. He shared this XRP price chart, and he wrote the following. XRP. If you're thinking of becoming a buyer of XRP here, consider rethinking your risk profile. Study the gradient of the shift in trend and how the downtrend has become increasingly aggressive. This is where it's best to short failed rallies and lower highs at key levels. So there you go, folks. He's calling the XRP breakout a failed rally, even though it hit a new all-time high. This is akin, in my mind, this is akin to What happened in 2017, calling XRP's breakout from half a penny to over 40 cents, a new all-time high at that point? Because mind you, XRP's highest price point before that breakout in 2017 was 6 cents. It was briefly there in 2014, I believe. Crashed back down to about half a penny. And then finally, you get into 2017, it goes from half a penny to over 40 cents. Just unprecedented price action for XRP. Very cool. But then it did go back down, and it consolidated, kind of like what we're seeing right now. Behaviorally, pretty similar anyway. And then it moved sideways for about half a year. And so imagine seeing XRP go from half a penny to 40 cents. And then you say, looks like the rally failed. But then at the end of 2017, XRP melts some freaking faces and runs to almost $4. Or, well, that was according to the all-time highs reported on Live Coin Watch. More precisely, the actual figure we now know, it's been widely discussed in recent months. It was more like $3.35, depending on which exchange you're looking at. But still, that's a massive freaking rally. So then I looked at this and I'm like, why is he drawing the lines the way that he's drawing? He's talking about a downward gradient. But then, like, for some, he seems to be connecting these red lines. So you can see the way he drew them. It does look like the degree to which XRP price is going down. It's going down at an increased clip, the way that he drew the lines here. But there's no rhyme or reason to this so far as I can tell, because sometimes he's drawing lines to match the wick of a candle. Other times he's drawing it to closer to, like, it looks like the body of a candle. And then in this one right here, showing the price action in February when XRP dropped down below whatever it was, what did it get down to? $1.76-ish, something like that. He didn't even draw the line to down here. He drew it up right, and is there any rhyme or reason to this? It's not even connecting. It doesn't even make sense to me. It looks like sloppily slapped down lines. But either way, I don't even, that's not even my biggest critique here. It's just, if you look at historic price action, we know that after XRP rallies, it has its first rally in a cycle, it then moves back down and consolidates, and then it has another one. That happened for each of the last two cycles. I can't imagine being short XRP here. Like that, to me, that does not compute. But anyway, everybody's entitled to their opinion, so nothing against them on a personal level. I just don't think that this is going to age well. Even if in the short term, fine, you see a little bit low. Okay, whatever. I don't think it makes sense to be short XRP. You just let enough time pass. The people that hold, they're the ones that win. And it's funny because he seemed to acknowledge that he's not great at analyzing XRP. Look at this post from December 5th of last year. XRP. For some reason, I can never read this coin well. My levels didn't play out at all. I don't only share my wins. So he's acknowledging he doesn't exactly have a great track record in analyzing XRP, but even after that, he's like, yeah, looks like this is not a good time to buy XRP. Not a good time to be long. Okay, bro. Then there's also this December 14th, 2020. This is 8 days before the SEC sued Ripple. XRP USD. Struggling to understand the XRP euphoria right now. Try not to take the lines I've drawn on this chart personally if you're underwater. And so the time he posted this, looks like XRP was, I guess if that was the most recent point, it would have been close to 50 cents. Now, mind you, for months, it would have been somewhere around roughly, I don't know, July, August, September, October. It was around there. XRP was hovering around like 20 to 25 cents for like months on end. I remember that, and if you were there, you probably do too, because it just seemed like it was never going to stop. Oh, but then it stopped. In the beginning of November of 2020, before the SEC sued Ripple, XRP rocketed from about 20 cents, maybe it's 25 cents, it was around there, to over 80 cents. And then it went back down and consolidated sideways. So that was the first major burst. Does that sound familiar to you? It sounds familiar, right? So it moved to the upside, then back down, then sideways. And he's like, ooh, this is not looking so good. I just don't get the euphoria. And what's amazing is XRP still ran to $2 from there, from that price point, despite the SEC suing Ripple and attacking XRP holders. It still went. Even while it was under attack, it still ran. And I know it didn't hit a new all-time high last cycle, but still. That's kind of freaking crazy, right? That's because people, without the artificial interference, XRP, my God, it would have hit a new all-time high last cycle, I believe. And it just shows you the degree to which, if it's not being impeded by government nonsense, people just flock to XRP. Like, they just go to it. And so he was wrong about that one too. XRP still rallied even after that. And so there's this post, and I've shared this before, so I'm going to be brief, but it's so fitting in a video where I'm covering this negative sounding perspective from this particular popular analyst. Here's an XRP USD price chart from XRP chart analyst Dom, who called this move to the upside. And he wrote the following. I'm just going to share a brief portion. It's not the whole post. Although you can read, if you want to pause and read this whole thing, you can. It's just I've highlighted this on the channel before, so I don't want to do that. But he said, there's one reason I will be pretty surprised if XRP does not go higher this year. Every time XRP has historically put in a multi-month or year top, it did it quickly, as you can see in this chart here. Essentially, it never showed any midterm acceptance at those higher levels, also known as no value agreed upon. The longer price spends time at a level, it's always just reflective of how much market participants agree on that price. And so you can see, going back, this is price action going back over a decade. When it hit certain peaks, they're very short-lived. You can see these were wicks and then just cratered on down. That's not happening here. It rocketed to a new all-time high, went down a little bit, and now it's just moving sideways. Well, that's not what you see at the end of a cycle. It's not. It just isn't. This is like what you saw in 2017. Look at 2017. Look at this. That mofo ran up, and then it moved down a little bit, moved sideways, and then it had another blow-off top. Looks more like that, doesn't it? Yes, because humans are treating it the same again. That's exactly correct. It's unfolding yet again. 3 freaking cycles in a row. Oh, it's just wild stuff here. And so there's that. And again, happy to share the negative sounding opinions. It's kind of fun to hear them. I just don't think that they're going to age well. And I'll tell you who isn't afraid of this. Again, it's me and hopefully pretty much all of you listening, but it's also people with millions of dollars worth of XRP on the line. So let's jump into this piece again. Here are the fearless XRP holders holding 1 million or more XRP. And there is one bucket where it's down like barely, but I look at that and I'm just like, and they acknowledge it in the article. They're like, but still, like even in this environment, because people are scared of the tariff stuff, and still, like, even just neutral would be amazing. Like, there are a lot of people with some serious money invested in XRP, like very serious money. Anyway, piece reads as follows. XRP address is holding 1 million tokens and more, which have witnessed a slight increase since the ongoing market collapse began. This is according to data from market intelligence provider Santiment, confirming optimism among whale investors despite the current downturn. For context, this downturn intensified early last month, specifically after March 2nd, following the 34% price spike that day on the back of Donald Trump's crypto reserve announcement. After the impressive intraday performance, XRP slumped nearly 19% on March 3rd, marking the start of the current price struggles. Since then, the altcoin has dropped 30%, struggling to maintain its hold above $2 before a full-blown recovery arrives. And I do believe that recovery. It's a coming. We ain't done here, folks. Can we even call it a recovery? It's way above where it was several months ago. It was at like 49 cents before the election. Anyway. Interestingly, it appears whales remain increasingly confident. That's the smart money, folks. They're confident still, and I agree with that assessment, absolutely. It appears whales remain increasingly confident in this recovery. According to Santiment data, XRP addresses holding 1 million XRP tokens and more have increased slightly since March 2nd. In particular, these addresses numbered 2,633 as of March 2nd. Of this figure, those holding between 1 million and 10 million XRP amounted to 2,136, making up the bulk of the number. Meanwhile, XRP addresses with balances ranging from 10 million to 100 million tokens were 301 in number. Further, there were 37 wallets holding 100 million to 1 billion XRP and 159 wallets holding 1 billion tokens and more. Okay, so maybe some of those are rich people, but obviously a lot of those are going to be the largest cryptocurrency exchanges on the planet. And that's why I actually find it more interesting to see the smaller buckets, like a little, like 1 million to 10 million, because you're more likely to run into individuals that are actually just holding it. Anyway, piece continues here. While some tiers of addresses have witnessed a drop in their numbers, others have increased to make up. For instance, recent data shows that XRP addresses with balances between 1 million and 10 million coins have dropped to 2,133, a decline of 3 addresses. Now, folks, that's what I was talking about. A decline, okay, whatever, for that particular bucket, of 3, despite all of the tariff scares. Isn't that telling? Like, everywhere I look, I just see signs of ridiculous strength for XRP. And then they write, anyway, however, to compensate for this drop, investors with balances ranging from 10 million to 100 million XRP have increased to 307, an addition of 6 addresses. So again, not huge numbers and increases, but there are only so many people and institutions on the planet that could even potentially fall into these buckets. Anyway, and then they write further, those holding between 100 million and 1 billion have also declined to 35, a loss of 2 wallets within this category. Nonetheless, there is now one more address with a balance of 1 billion XRP and more. Overall, all XRP addresses with 1 million XRP and more now amount to 2,635, a net increase of 2 since March 2nd. So I think it's cool. But anyway, they do go on a site. I don't need to read the rest of this, but it's what I was saying. And so I agree with the assessment here. You know, the figure is too small to make a difference. Yeah. But they say the fact that the market has not observed a massive drop in these addresses signifies confidence in XRP's potential. That's the key takeaway. That's correct. Look, if XRP didn't make sense, because again, this is the smart money. You know, people, the stupid money, if it ever gets to the point where it's millions of dollars XRP, they're probably not going to hold on to it very long if they're stupid people. The smart money makes the smart moves. And they think XRP makes sense, and I can't disagree with that. The confidence is still there. Now just wait, there's going to be a peak for this market, and then XRP price will tumble, but we ain't there yet. I still firmly believe we're going to enter price discovery, and that's the point where so many of us in the community and so many of you listening, that's where we finally get our life-changing wealth and we finally realize the profit. I really believe that's coming. It's just all signs point to yes. It's just going so incredibly well, and XRP continues to show ridiculous strength compared to the rest of the market, even in the face of this tariff nonsense. It's a great time to be an XRP holder. It just is. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.